Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak. So actually, you're all very fortunate because this is a very special time right now on planet Earth, according to the Vedas and according to astronomy, astrology, and cosmology. And you may ask, gee, it really doesn't feel like a very special time right now. In fact, it's never been darker. So the explanation for this is because we're actually at the cusp of the dawn of a new age, predicted by all wisdom traditions since the beginning of time. It's actually going down now. We're talking about the Messianic age. We're talking about swords being beaten into plowshares and lions lying down with lambs. This is all what we're just about to come to. And what do they say? What's that saying? It's always darkest before the dawn. And that's what we're experiencing right now. You could say it's the last court press by the other team, the Black Hats. So the manifestation of the rising sun of what's going to dispel darkness is the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, the massive white marble edifice that's being built on the bank of the Ganga right now in Mayapur. And Srila Prabhupada, before he ended his manifest pastimes, he gave direction to build this huge temple, massive, hundreds of millions of dollars, the largest religious structure in the world. Its dome is the largest dome of any structure on the planet. And what is the dome meant to accommodate? A planetarium. So what? Right? Like the eternal headquarters for 10,000 years of ISKCON and the ushering of the golden age is a planetarium? That's the beating heart of ISKCON? So this is what this class is going to explain. I have three goals. I want to give you a grasp of the significance of this project that's being built. I'd like to give you a little understanding of fifth canto cosmology. That is the universe as it's explained in the Bhagavatam, not as we understand through NASA, but what is beyond the ability of our physical sight, subtle dimensions, subtle realities, that just because we can't perceive with our gross senses doesn't mean that it's not real. Even Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, he explains how Lord Nityananda took Srila Jiva Goswami on a tour of Mayapur and showed him and said that in this location will be what he referred to as an Adbhuta Mandir, meaning an amazing temple. And he said, when the doors of this temple open, there will be a flood of service to Lord Chaitanya, which will drown the world. So this is a very significant moment that we're coming to. And a big question that a lot of devotees ask is, the fifth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam says some wild things about the cosmos. Crazy things. Sounds like science fiction, right? Like Chandra and Surya, the sun god, being pulled by a chariot with 1,000 drivers the size of a thumb, facing the wrong direction, and he's moving around the pole star of Jambudweep and Meru. It seems kind of crazy. So devotees will ask sometimes, are we meant to believe it? Is it real? Or is it metaphorical? So it is 100% real. And the beautiful thing about Krishna consciousness is that there's a great shloka in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna himself is glorifying Krishna consciousness. Krishna is glorifying the process of Krishna consciousness. And he says, Raja Vijja Raja Guya, that this is of all knowledge, this is the king. And he says, it's the most secret thing. It's very subtle, very difficult to see. And then he goes on to say pratyaksha. It's known through pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means direct perception. This is Krishna consciousness. You know, people talk about faith-based religions. Krishna consciousness is not a faith-based religion. Make no mistake about it. Nobody is practicing Krishna consciousness because they hope it's true. Faith means you sure hope it's real, right? But all of us, we are devotees because we have had direct mystical experience of Krishna being God. God gives us direct revelation. It's simultaneous. It's Antaryami Krishna. It's the guru in our heart. That's Krishna. And it's a devotee externally is a representation of Supersoul. So we know that if a devotee comes up and says a particular point, right? Like to help us with a problem, and we hear it and it resonates with us, that we can accept that it's Krishna. But when we go home in our bedroom looking at the window and the sunlight is streaming in the morning, and we pick a book at random and Krishna and Prabhu say exactly the same thing that the devotee said to us the day before in the temple room. This is direct mystical revelation that this is God directly helping us. So all of us have had these moments, whether it can be looking at the deities, we have some revelation of what they really are, who they really are. Or this is the currency of Krishna consciousness. So in terms of grasping the wild things claimed in the scripture that exist in outer space that we can't see, it can also be understood by pratyaksha. And the purpose of the temple and the museum in the temple is to give devotees the ability to understand that it's real. My particular service, I'm writer for the museum, which is going to be in the west wing of this great temple. So I help design the exhibits to explain Bhagavat cosmology. So that's why I wanted to talk to devotees and give you a little overview. So Prabhupada, like I say, there's lots of indication of how this temple is going to change the world. But Prabhupada didn't really explain so much how it would change the world. He said it would, believe it. And that was enough for devotees. That's enough. But as someone who had to write the scripts and to design the exhibits to be able to explain it, we really needed to understand how it was true. Was there something in Prabhupada's books that explained it? And there is. If we look to the Bhagavatam, our very means of conquest, So this is from the Bhagavatam. This is 5th canto. So listen carefully. The chandelier, the planetarium in the main temple that we're going to show is the body of Lord Vishnu. The Bhagavatam explains that the entire universe, both what you can see with the telescope and what is unseen to our physical eyes, this is the body of God. The entire cosmological manifestation is the body of Lord Vishnu. So the presentation of the planetary position, the cosmology, is the same as the deity in the temple. This is the understanding of Bhagavatam. So here's one verse. When the mind is fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his external feature, made of the material modes of nature, the gross universal form, it is brought to the platform of pure goodness. In that transcendental position, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, who in his subtler form is self-effulgent and beyond the modes of nature. O my Lord, please describe vividly how that form, which covers the entire universe, is perceived. So Parikshit Maharaj, in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, before the description of the universe, he says, I get it now. I understand that everything is Krishna, all together, conglomerated. And each part of the cosmos represent different parts of the body of God. And we'll look at that a little more. And then at the conclusion, Sukadeva Goswami says, I have already described how one can progress on the path of liberation. In the Puranas, the vast universal existence, which is like an egg divided into 14 worlds, is described. This vast form is considered the external body of the Lord, created by his energy and qualities. It is called the Virat Rupa. If one reads the description of this external form of the Lord with great faith, or if one hears about it or explains it to others to propagate Bhagavat Dharma, his faith and devotion in spiritual consciousness will gradually increase. Although developing this consciousness is very difficult, this is the way to come to the awareness of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So, in the Bhagavatam, it's explained at length that the way to understand everything and to begin the process of devotional service is to actually have an understanding of the cosmology of the universe, as described in the Vedas. This is in the Bhagavatam. This is directly the Bhagavatam. And if you want the seed verse to understand exactly why, so there's one verse which Prabhupada, you can see the inception. So, let's give an overview of the Bhagavatam for those who may not understand it. Bhagavatam is 12 cantos. 10th canto is Krishna's smiling face. It's Krishna's pastimes with the gopis. Madhurya Lila, Rasa Lila. We are not meant to read about the erotic affairs of Radha and Krishna before understanding the first 9 cantos. That is our qualification. Otherwise, we'll think it's like mundane boys and girls in the material world. It's just romance literature, of which it is the opposite. So the Bhagavatam begins, right? Let's set the stage. The sages of Namasharanya have just performed a 1,000-year sacrifice for the benefit of all living entities suffering in Kali Yuga. And Sutta Goswami comes and they accept that he knows everything about spiritual life. He was sitting there when Sukadeva Goswami was speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. He was there during the recitation of the Bhagavatam. And he was the most qualified. And his character is considered the best because he had a habit of performing personal service to all of his teachers. So his character was unassailable. And this is the secret of having revelation of spiritual truth, is a mood of gratitude and submission to one's teachers. Because when we receive knowledge, it's a gift of inconceivable value. And there has to be some appreciation. You can put questions, but it shouldn't be in a disrespectful, challenging mood. There has to be some appreciation that through knowledge we grow and we attain everything. So, Sutta comes up, the sages are there. They say to him, "Great you're here because we're in anxiety about the residents of Kali. We're concerned. So you tell us, what is the best of what you understood? Of everything you've heard, what is that information which will help people the most?" So Sutta says, very good question. And what does he say? Devotional service to Krishna. Nastaprayeshu bhajyeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. It's understanding that the purpose of your life is to perform loving devotional service to Krishna who is in your heart. Nothing else will satisfy you. You'll understand everything. All truths will be revealed, and you'll attain the summum bonum, the goal of life, love of Godhead. There's nothing higher than this. So right out of the gate, the first canto gives the overview of the entire Bhagavatam. And this is how generally Shastra is written like this. Generally in the Vedas, at the beginning of the work, it sums up the entire work and tells you where it's going to take you in the end. Right? It may not be great for like a detective novel, right? You may not want to know that, but that's the Vedic way. So here we are. And then after Sutta gives the answer, then we come to the end of Mahabharata. It's Krishna winding up his pastimes with Abhimanyu, with Ashwatthama, with Arjuna losing his power when Krishna leaves the planet. And then the ultimate event occurs because of Krishna's disappearance. Parikshit is cursed by Shringi, the Brahmin boy, the misuse of Brahmin power. He curses him. In a week you will die from a snake bird, over a trifling incident. So that is first canto. That sets the stage. Second canto of Bhagavatam. So here we go. Sukadeva comes up and he understands the king has been cursed, And he says, I will help you. I will stay with you for the week, and I will help you remember Krishna. So, because Sukadev knew that Parikshit was from an illustrious dynasty. He was attached, he had affection for Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu and the grandson of Arjuna himself. So, what does he do? So the first chapter of the second canto is called what? First step in God realization. So here we go. Sukadev's going to give the whole game right now. And what does he do? He gives a few verses of introduction. He sets the stage. He glorifies the holy name. He laments about the grihastas who were lost in the dark well. And then he says, you should meditate on the limbs of Lord Vishnu, one after another, without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Then the mind will become free of all sense objects, and there should be no other thing but thought upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. It is the ultimate truth, and your mind will be completely reconciled in him only. And then he goes on to say, O king, the assistance of remembrance by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all-good personal conception of the Lord manifested by the Virat Rupa from the universe, one will very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter. So this is the benefit of looking at the Virat Rupa, of the cosmos, the Vedic cosmos. If one can look at it and understand it and remember it, one directly starts to practice devotional service under Krishna's direct shelter. So this is, and then for the next verse, Sutta starts to describing some of that Virat Rupa. One should control the sitting posture. The gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal world is the personal body, where in the past, present, and future of material time is present. The gigantic form of the personality of Godhead is covered by sevenfold material elements, and this is the Virat conception. And then he goes on to explain the shoulders of the Lord, the legs of the Lord being the kshatriyas, the arms of the Lord being the vaishyas, and the different prayers, how he's cloaked in the day, in the night. The sphere of outer space constitute his eyeballs, and the eye pits, and the eyeball is the sun, is the power of seeing. His eyelids are both day and night, and in the movements of his eyebrows, Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palate is the director of water, Varuna, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue. They say the Vedic hymns are his cerebral passage, and his jaws are the teeth of Yama, god of death, who punishes sinners. The art of affection is his beautiful teeth, and the most alluring, illusory material energy is his smile. The great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance. So it goes on to explain the features of the cosmos, seeing it from a Krishna conscious perspective. But here it is. This is the seed mantra, the Bij mantra of the Temple of Vedic Planetarium. So Sukadev says, I've thus explained, so he finishes the description of the Virat Rupa. And he says, I've thus explained to you the gross material gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires the liberation, concentrate his mind on this form, because there is nothing more than this in the material world. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, less intelligent persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot accommodate the thought of this inconceivable potency of Lord Sri Krishna by him appearing as a human being. His appearance in the material world is his causeless mercy. He comes down to manifest himself as the personality of Godhead. Materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engrossed with atomic energy and the gigantic situation of the universal form, and they offer respect more seriously to the external phenomenal feature of the material manifestation than the noumenal principle of Krishna's spiritual essence. The transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activity, and it is very difficult to conceive of the Lord simultaneously localized and all-pervasive. Because they are unable to accept the personal feature of the Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat Rupa of his form, and herein Srila Sukadeva Goswami vividly describes it. Therefore, all these materialistic men are advised by the Lord to think of any part of the gigantic body, and by this intelligence, they will understand devotional service to the Lord. So there it is, right there. This is Prabhupada's plan. Because in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, in the first chapter of the second canto, first step in God realization, Sukadeva Goswami explains that one who is materialistic, which we all are, if we can actually understand the cosmos is the body of the Lord, it will begin us being able to perform devotional service. And that is Prabhupada's whole idea, that the world, particularly scientists, those academically trained, and philosophers, will have an opportunity to see the cosmos as the form of the Lord in the Virat Rupa in the central planetarium. Does that make sense? And our goal is to bring the world and explain exactly what it is. The goal of the museum is we simply want to introduce every visitor to the cosmos chandelier and let them have their own experience, their own darshan. Because we have the faith that that will begin their devotional service. Because this has been promised by Sukadeva Goswami and Srila Prabhupada. That is the whole purpose of the entire project. Somehow this is going to create a revolution in the world. And we will experience a 10,000-year golden period within the 432,000 years of Kali Yuga, where this planet will again become a spiritual planet, where there will be no envy, there will be no divisiveness, there will be mutual respect and love amongst all living creatures. And everyone together, what will be the common activity is that around the world, all people, all birds and beasts will do kirtan together and chant Hare Krishna to worship the Lord. This will be the world. 5,000 years at its peak, and then 5,000 years, it will reduce, and then after 10,000 years, Kali Yuga will begin again. This is a special dispensation. Lord Brahma lives for trillions of years, and one of his days has 1,000 Divya Yugas. A Divya Yuga is the 4-season cycle: spring, summer, fall, winter, golden, silver, copper, iron. There's 1,000 cycles of the 4 ages in a day of Brahma. It's called a kalpa. Did you know that Lord Chaitanya only comes once out of one of those 1,000 Kali Yugas? So you just happen to be in the one Kali Yuga out of 1,000 that Mahaprabhu comes. And did you know that you cannot go to Goloka Vrindavan and love Krishna so intimately unless you take birth in this one Kali Yuga out of 1,000? So our good fortune is immeasurable. Even though things are bad and dark and wicked, have faith. It's coming. Deliverance is at hand. But we have to be optimistic. There's a lot of good news. So, any questions about that? The philosophical basis of the temple? Yes? It's already, have you gone? You can go on the internet, TOVP, and you can see the picture. Have you seen the crazy massive temple? It's like with a big blue, like Fabergé egg dome. Yeah, it's going to be opening in a couple of years. I'm sorry, a PowerPoint presentation would do this more justice, but this was kind of last minute. But yeah, go online, look up Temple of Vedic Planetarium, you'll have your mind blown. Okay, so next is a grasp of Vedic cosmology. So, the Bhagavatam explains a very different universe than what we understand. And, we're submitted with many different images purported to come from a very long way away. If certain agencies have credibility, then that's great. We have complete faith in the Vedic explanation. So, The Vedic cosmos is based around a structure, like a mountain called Jambudvip. This is not a normal mountain. It is shaped like a sacrificial pit. Have you ever come to the temple and seen the devotees pouring ghee in the fire at an initiation or a festival? Have you seen that? So that structure is called a Vedi. It's a sacrificial arena. And in previous ages, this was the way that human beings actually offered service to the demigods and ultimately Krishna. Clarified ghee from protected cows was like gold. See, when you kill the cow, milk becomes the same price as water at the 7-Eleven, as insane as that is. That's only because of killing. It's a slaughter. But if the cow is loved and worshipped and like a pet, and everyone has it like a pet in their home and loved like a member of the family, and brushed and washed and milked and only enough that it for its own health, then milk becomes like gold. And this is what was offered into the fire. So it was a very valuable commodity. So, in the center of the cosmic universe is Jambudvip. And it has steps. And there's certain people live in these areas. These are inhabited civilizations. Then, coming from Jambudvip, I don't know if you've ever seen the picture of Sadaputta's book, Mysteries of the Sacred Universe. So it's shown as a red cone, golden, but it's actually, that's not what it is. It's the flames coming from the Vedi. It's the sacrifice of the universe being offered into the central Vedi of Jambudvip. And that's why the Devas and the planetary deities all exist above this, the flames of this Jambudvip arena. So this is both metaphorical and it's literal. There is a place called Jambudvip, but it also acts to remind us that the central purpose of existence is sacrifice to Vishnu. Without sacrifice, life has no meaning. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, "Be thou happy with the sacrifice that I've given you, for it will bestow upon you all things." And this way, you will make the Devas happy and they will make you happy. This is Krishna's formula, is that human beings were meant to offer sacrifice. So what is the sacrifice that we're offering? This young lady here with her japa bag. Right? In the opulence of the absolute, when Krishna is saying, I'm this, I'm that, amongst birds, I'm Garuda, mountains, I'm the Himalayas, of lights, I'm the sun. What does he say among sacrifices I am? That's right. Japa. So, you have Jambudvip, you have Meru. Above Meru are the Devas, and the planetary deities are circumambulating Meru, creating what we see as the movements of the planets. Then above that, you have Brahma exists on the top of Meru. And then there's Janalok, Tapalok, Svargalok, different levels of different pious beings with very advanced spiritual consciousness. Then you have Brahma's abode again. He has a separate abode on the chandelier, the cosmic tree of the universe. And then you go up and then there's Maheshdam, Lord Shiva's abode, Haridam. So you can say, how can I have a direct realization, pratyaksha, of the cosmological structure of the universe? Well, you have. If you've ever had some revelation of Krishna, if you've ever had a moment where Krishna reveals himself to you, like in a beautiful painting or in front of the deities, where something is shown to you that you're not looking at marble or paper, but you're actually directly seeing Krishna. So you've seen him, you've felt him. And if you can accept Krishna, then it means Goloka is true. And if you accept Goloka, then you have to accept Mathurapuri. You have Mathurapuri. You have to accept Ayodhyapuri, the planet of Ramachandra. You have to accept Vaikuntha, right? So therefore, there's your Haridam. You have to accept Maheshdam, right? So you already have a connection with the material, with the cosmic manifestation if you're chanting Hare Krishna. You're already, because Krishna is the fountainhead of the cosmos. Everything is built upon him. He is its support as Ananta Shesh at the very bottom, and he's at the very top in Vrindavan, dancing with Radharani. He pervades and supports the entire cosmos. So we have direct experience of the cosmos, but the purpose of the museum and the temple is to kind of give a better grasp. So when Prabhupada was directing the construction of this temple, he challenged the devotees very seriously. He wanted a device, like a chandelier, that would move in a way that faithfully explained the movements of the luminaries according to the 5th canto. But he did one other thing also, which made it almost impossible. That he himself, even though he spent years on it, he said, I cannot do it. Krishna will have to send someone. And that is to do it in a way that explains how the movements of the luminaries in the 5th canto create what we see with our eyes on planet Earth. Meaning the day, the night, the solstices, the eclipses, and the seasons. So this masterwork was done by my friend and the director of the Chandelier in Cosmology, Untitled Prabhu. And he's just an amazing devotee. He's passed through LA. He's come here before. He has a medical doctorate. He has degrees in astrophysics. And he's the world's leading authority on Shastras, Jyotish, the Angas, the different Siddhantas of the planetary personalities. And he's the one that came up with this 112-page, it's like mathematical calculations explaining how it could be done. So his work, his paper, he's kind of the genius behind the planetarium presentation. And the museum is meant to show that. So, if Jambudweep, the center of the cosmos, is a Vedi, a sacrificial pit, and Meru coming out of it is the flames of sacrifice being offered by the Yagyaman. The Yagyaman is the priest who's performing the fire sacrifice. Who is the Yagyaman? Who looks north, who's situated south of the Vedi. It's human beings. It's Bharat Varsha. It's us. And the Himalayas are the gateway between the cosmic universe as embodied by Jambudweep-centered cosmology and planet Earth. So you can say, okay, well, I'm just going to take that tour to the Himalayas I saw in that travel magazine. I want to see the cosmos. Well, it's not quite like that, even though, bizarrely enough, there's anecdotes and records of explorers that have gone into these areas and claim they found like tropical paradises with like grapes this big. So it's kind of interesting. They're accessing, because according to the Bhagavatam, at the lower rungs of the Vedi are the yakshas and the kimpurushas, heavenly gardens, with like golden lotus flowers and empowered beings. Yes, Prabhu? Sure. That's Meru. Meru is an actual structure, like an upside-down cone. But its explanation of its form is that it represents the central yagya of the universe to Lord Vishnu. That's Jambudweep. Around Jambudweep is what we call flat Earth. That is Bhumandala. It's concentric islands with different oceans of different substances, like milk and sugarcane juice and just crazy descriptions.
What's the relationship between the flames and the Sumeru?
Jambudweep is the Sumeru and Meru are the same.
Okay.
Meru is a structure like an upside down cone. So that's like the flames that come out of a yagya sacrifice. Jambudweep is the arena, is the pit. Meru are the flames. Does that make it clear?
Well, a little bit, but is it an object or is it
Yes.
flames?
Yeah, it's an object.
So
All the planets and nakshatras and stars circumambulate Meru. Its axis, the center of Meru, is Dhruvaloka, the pole star, a line coming from the pole star. Everything rotates around Jambudweep and Meru.
So what's the relationship between the flames and the ice cream cone-like structure?
It's the same.
They're the same.
Yes,
Okay.
it's different ways of understanding it.
Different perspectives.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay?
Yep. Thank you.
So, who's facing the sacrifice offering are human beings that are, ultimately India, right? You know what the Greenwich meridian is? This was pushed on us by the British because of their Brito-centric worldview. The original prime meridian of the planet, according to the Vedas, is aligned to Kurukshetra and Ujjain in India. That's originally the prime meridian, but it was hijacked by the British. Yes. So, if one is actually at Kurukshetra on the original prime meridian, one is experiencing the day as it's experienced in Jambudvipa and Bhumandala. It's a direct gateway between both dimensions. So, then what happens is that it's kind of mind-boggling. I'm trying to articulate it. But you can ask a question if something's confusing. So, the reality of the earth is flat. Right? You've heard the flat earthers go on, but the thing is, they're missing, it's also a globe. It's both. It is flat and it's round. That is the truth of the earth. This is what Prabhupada has said. So, what happens is, the reality of the cosmos comes through fifth canto cosmology from the world of Meru and Jambudvipa, comes through the prime meridian, and then it wraps around like a ball because you're restricted in your access. So if you want to look at the internet, there's a great picture. A drop of water is in front of a flat map of Earth on the back. But in the round drop, it's the globe. It's the Earth globe, like the drop of water has wrapped the flat Earth map around it to appear like a globe. This is what we're experiencing. Prabhupada explained it like this. He said, a bull grinding grain has a rope in its nose, and it's trucking along, right? It's going, it wants to go, it's going. From its perspective, with blinders on, it's going straight, but it's not. It's stuck in a rut of a circle. It can't go beyond that circle. This is us in Bhugola, on the globe Earth. So you can get on a plane and you can go around 100 times because you're not qualified. You don't have yogic siddhic consciousness to perceive different elements. And as you develop Krishna consciousness and chant Hare Krishna, you will have further revelation of other realities. This is the process of purification. There's a book by Ramanujacharya called Astottara Divyadesham, where he describes a list of 108 primary Vishnu temples that every devotee should visit in their life. Many of them are lost, but some are still there, like Sri Rangam is one of them, or Udupi, Krishna, in South India and Karnataka, or Sri Janardhan in Kerala. But some are lost, like there's one that's meant to be in Mathura, nobody knows where it is. So 107 is a structure on the North Pole dedicated to Lord Vishnu. And Ramanujacharya in detail describes its architecture and what's in it. And he makes a note, he says, but it is not accessible to those who are not siddhis and rishis. So, you can either accept Ramanujacharya or not. But he's explaining his perception, because he was not a normal human being, Ramanujacharya, that Vaishnavacharya. So, there are elements of the universe that we cannot see. So, here's another thing to consider. You may go like all this crazy stuff in the Bhagavatam, all the things you're claiming. Is there any solid evidence to give us some faith? So consider this, that the government has come out and accepted that there are real phenomena, UFOs, that can do things that completely break our understanding of modern physics. This is a reality. This isn't Abhay getting crazy, like putting on a tinfoil hat. This is the news. You know, about 10 years ago, a bunch of military guys had a press conference in DC, in Washington, where they announced to the press that all of them, from all different militaries around the world, had experienced UFOs, seen that they're real on radar, that they could do things that we can't understand with our science, and that they wanted the government to acknowledge it and work on it. So there you go. There is documented evidence of advanced people in military from around the world, police people, of things breaking modern physics documented by real people, not crazy people. So, once again, it's quite it's quite deep, but by the grace of the Lord, we can understand it. So, there's also a relationship between Meru and the North Pole. Here's another thing to bend your mind. That Meru exists on the North Pole in some capacity. This is all from Shastra. So, what happens is, as the sun moves farther away from Meru in its orbit, we also perceive it to be moving farther away from the North Pole. And as the seasons are affected on Bhumandala, so you could say, do you know what Bhumandala is? Those concentric circles? They're all humans. They're actually human beings, but not like us. And there's not much that description in the 5th canto of it. So as the sun moves away from Meru and affects the seasons of those in the inaccessible 5th canto cosmology, we experience as the seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. So once again, this is just an offering of just to have a little grasp of the way things are structured and the connection. So Bhugola, it's sitting on Bhumandala. It's part of the flat plane of cosmic Bhumandala where humans live, but it's experienced as a globe by us. We cannot go beyond, unless, it's really funny if you consider that in all literature, in all film, in all poetry and art, somehow in the human mind, there's this intuition that the Himalayas holds the secret to all questions and knowledge, and that if you're in a desperate situation, you just climb there and you'll meet someone who will kind of tell you the truth about reality, isn't it? This is like, even in like Marvel films, right? There's like doorways and gateways to other dimensions, because it's so intuitive. It's in us, it's in our DNA, that the Himalayas are a place of mystery, that if you go there, you may not come back the same. You will access some other different reality. So this is not Bhagavatam, this is the human experience we're sharing. Any questions about that? Anything? Yes.
Wait, please. So basically, we live on a flat earth, but we experience it as if it was a globe.
Yes.
But it's not.
Well, it's a globe. I mean, what is it? If you say it's really a globe, it exists like a globe. You can go around it on an airplane. You can see the horizon.
But why
so
is
it
that?
is, huh?
Why?
Because what's the alternative? You want free will. You want to enjoy independently from Krishna. You want Bhumandala where you can see Meru and you can't do any of your nonsense because it's all in front of your face?
No, I want to do nonsense.
No,
Thank you.
I'm speaking theoretically. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm talking about me. I don't want to look up in the sky and have like the Devas looking down at me, right? When I'm trying to like go to the local dispensary. It's like I don't need that cramping my style. Right? I want to create the illusion that there's nothing up there, so I can just act with gay abandon. So this is our disease as human beings. So therefore, we know everything. You can go around it. We've been to the North Pole, the South Pole. There ain't nothing there.
So you're telling me I can't actually prove my friends that the earth is flat? I can't?
If they actually want to understand alternative reality cosmology, explain them that just as much as understanding what NASA is teaching in astrophysics and string theory and quantum physics, you can't just explain it to them at Starbucks over a coffee. They have to become qualified. They have to speak the language of cosmology. Their senses have to be purified to perceive entities from different dimensions and different realities that are impacting our reality. Explain to them it's not a small thing.
Can I just send them your way?
Huh? Sure. There's a superficial charge, but
Thank you.
small admission fee. Yeah, but ultimately you have to point them in direction of japa, your japa bag, and the Bhagavatam. And it gets revealed if they want, but remember, do not drink from that well of knowledge, where it is folly to be wise, where ignorance is bliss. That old poem is that there's a price for understanding Krishna. You can't live the way you do once things are revealed to you. There's a price. But when we go to university, we kind of accept that the professor knows what they're talking about, right? We don't go in and go, oh, this guy's an idiot, I don't believe anything. No, it's like I paid $1 million. So in the same way, when people approach Krishna consciousness, there has to be some initial faith that devotees know what they're talking about, and a willingness just to listen for a while. Because it all makes sense. And if you follow the process, you yourself will have direct mystical revelation of the cosmology of the universe. Yes, Prabhu?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what are the members of the TOVP, what's their attitude towards that book Sariputta wrote, Vedic Cosmography and Astronomy?
Sure. Well, in 2010, the GBC were trying to determine which was the model that they would go for, to select. And there were 3 submissions. One of them was Sariputta's from some of his students, and another one was Untitled, and then another one submitted by another cosmologist. So it's important to understand, even Sariputta himself, I know Sariputta, I spent a lot of time with him, questioned him extensively in my life. And he himself was not completely 100% satisfied with that model as an explanation of the cosmos. See, what he did was, it was a Bhaktivedanta Institute type of outreach, meaning that he shows a coordination between the circumferences of the islands, concentric rings of Bhumandala, and the orbits of the planets in our universe that, like NASA, would supply you with those figures. So it kind of builds a bridge between scientifically conditioned people to see some kind of credibility in the 5th canto model. But in terms of what Prabhu directly instructed for the museum, it had to be a hardcore, no-nonsense Vedic explanation with no compromise, as it is from the Shastra. So that was Antardweep's work, and that was accepted by the GBC. Is that?
Yeah, okay, I'll go with that. You mentioned about Kurukshetra being the center.
On the prime meridian.
Yeah. Isn't it someplace in the Bhagavatam that Namisharanya is like the center of the universe?
You know,
how do those
like Meru is beyond the Himalayas and it's on the North Pole. There are multiple dimensions to our cosmos. So Namisharanya is meant to be the actual hub, the center of the universe. Right? When I refer to the prime meridian upon which Kurukshetra and Ujjain exists upon, it's more the access point of the cosmological influence of the planets from 5th canto into the Earth globe. And giving Jambudweep as a center is more for a spatial coordination of your understanding. But within Bhumandala is Bhugola, and on that Bhugola is Namisharanya, and that is technically the center of the universe. Does that help?
It's 2 different concepts, in other words.
Yeah, it's 2 ways of seeing it. Was there another hand up here? Someone else had a question? Okay, so the final part of my presentation is more, I guess, internal, in that someone may ask the question, is there a history of this ark, of this temple of Vedic planetarium, coming through our Guru Varga? So when we look at the altar, we have our Guru Parampara. Who is there? Who's pictured? Yes. Bhakti Siddhanta then? Gorky Shore Das Babaji Maharaj, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, then Jagannath Das Babaji. So this is our Guru Parampara. These are our predecessor gurus. When you look at the altar, those gentlemen sitting there looking like amazing pure devotees, kind of in different figures, one's sitting up, one's like hunched over. You can see, you can read, their aura, that these are like advanced saintly gurus. So these are our acharyas that we are directly, these are our fathers. If you're chanting Hare Krishna in ISKCON and following Prabhupada, these are your grandfather, your great-grandfather. You should feel a connection to them You can speak to them. They will answer you if you ask them questions. They are very much present. So, is there an arc of cosmology leading to the TOVP coming through them? Yes. So, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj was a Shiksha Guru to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And this is a very interesting point. This doesn't have to do with cosmology. This is just something that you should know, that we are a Shiksha Sampradaya, meaning that in our line, who you accept as your guide can be more important as even the one who gave you your japa beads, your diksha. Because if you look at our line, it's not always initiating guru to disciple. It means that somebody accepted this individual as the most crucial teacher in their lives. So it's coming through there. So this is important to understand even for ourselves, that just because we get initiation doesn't mean we will not have other people that will seriously influence and direct us. We are a Shiksha Sampradaya. Anyway, that's a separate point. So, Jagannath Das Babaji was the instructing guru of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he asked him to get into astronomy for the purposes of printing a pankaja, which is it's an almanac to give times. For devotees, this is very important because we want to follow Ekadasi correctly and different festivals. And sometimes there's mixed Ekadasis, and there's you can break Ekadasi if you don't know what you're doing. It requires some degree of calculation. Our own ISKCON Vaishnav calendar, vaishnavcalendar.com, this is calculated by our astrologers. It's free online. You can find out what's going on. Vaishnavcalendar.com, plug in Los Angeles, it'll tell you everything. All the festivals coming, when to follow Ekadasi, when to break your Ekadasi, when you can have that heated up slice of pizza the next morning after Ekadasi you had to keep in your fridge for the whole day. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur took this very seriously. And in fact, the original printing presses that printed the first almanacs were the same printing presses that printed Sajjana Toshini of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Bhakti Bhavan. And in fact, Bhakti Siddhanta dove into astronomy, and the Bhakti Bhavan of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was going to turn into a Chatuspati, an actual institute of Vedic cosmology to train young men in calculating the movements of the planets for the purposes of preaching. This was all Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's plan. He had dove into astronomy. And in fact, he published Surya Siddhanta, which is the definitive book of each, according to the Vedas, there's many Jyotish texts. So each planet has a spoken Veda. Like Bhagavad Gita is Krishna, what he said. So there's Surya Siddhanta, it was spoken by the sun god millennia ago. Each planet has its own Siddhanta, where it reveals astronomical truth from its own perspective. So Surya Siddhanta is from the sun god, and Prabhupada's guru, the gentleman sitting next to Prabhupada under Gaur Nitai, he was the world's greatest astronomer before he became a worldwide preacher. And he translated this obscure esoteric book full of unbelievable mathematical calculations. If you looked at it, it makes my head hurt. I'm not a mathematically inclined person. And he was awarded with the title. That's how he became Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And what year was Surya Siddhanta published by Bhakti Siddhanta? Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. It's the same year as Life and Precepts of Lord Chaitanya. 1896, the year of Prabhupada's birth, showing further connection between the work of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta and Prabhupada. So, Bhakti Siddhanta was diving in head first into astronomy. But two events happened in his life. The disappearance of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father. And before his departure, he asked Bhakti Siddhanta to very seriously dedicate himself to Bhagavat Dharma, the preaching of Krishna consciousness around the world. And his own guru, Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, took him aside and said, I appreciate what you're doing, but you should keep aside all other work and simply focus on Bhagavat Dharma, spreading the teachings of Mahaprabhu and the publication of books and around the world of Krishna consciousness. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta as those that we know the history, he put it on hold. And ultimately, what was the work of Bhaktisiddhanta? It was Gaudiya Mat. That was the ultimate, besides many things, writing many books, but ultimately manifesting the precursor of ISKCON, the Gaudiya Mat, was the contribution of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to show how he wanted an institution to be formed, how it would be structured, what the standards would be, what the sadhana is, what the activities are, the template for ISKCON. And what was ultimately the fruit of the Gaudiya Mat? Srila Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada, to fulfill the order of his spiritual master, created ISKCON, where he could then create what the Gaudiya Mat could never do, the governing body commission. And so just to wind things up, to appreciate the beauty, the poetic beauty of this project is that, look at the irony, that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta put aside all his cosmological work to focus on the thing that ultimately brought us Prabhupada and empowered him to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And what does Prabhupada do before his own departure? He gives the direction to his disciples to erect the headquarters of our temple, with his center focus being the teaching of Vedic astronomy and cosmology, reintroducing the very thing his Guru Maharaj gave so much prominence to, that he put aside momentarily, because the world needed Krishna consciousness. So now we're entering a new dawn. We're going back to that. Traditionally, in Vedic culture, the portfolio of a Brahmana is not just Harinam and Sankirtan and Bhagavad Dharma. It's also Ayurveda and astrology. Astrology is like Hare Krishna psychology. It enables a devotee, like a therapist, to see all your mental hang-ups and what you brought into this world without having to hear about how your mother force-fed you to eat soap when you said a dirty word when you were 5, and how it's given you a speech impediment. It's deeper deconstruction of your childhood trauma and your family of origin dysfunction through the blessings of the planets, which we all need, right? You know, I was not fortunate enough to have a regular upbringing. We're bringing so much stuff. So that's so if you think about it, such a beautiful thing that Bhaktisiddhanta suspended what was dear to him to bring Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada in his last direction makes the focus of the movement around the very thing that his Guru Maharaj shelved momentarily. So these are all very wonderful things.
Haribo.
So that's my presentation. Any questions or comments? My primary work is I'm head writer of the museum. So what I'm doing right now, so if you stand in front of the temple, right, if you see a picture, the right wing will be a temple dedicated to Lord Nrsingadev, Ugra Nrsinga. The west wing, closer to the Ganga, is a museum. 4 stories with like an IMAX theater in a dome on top. So my service is, I work under the executive committee of the museum. That is headed up by Jayapataka Maharaj. I got an email from Jayapataka Maharaj shortly before this class, and he said, how's everything in LA? What's going on? How is everybody? So I will tell him, I'll give him a report of you Prabhus, but he was just asking about LA. And Dhruta Karma Prabhu is on the executive committee. He's also my boss. Rameshwar Prabhu, Akandadi, another Prabhupada disciple, Jagannath Tirtha, my creative director, cosmologist, Underdweep Prabhu. So I get submitted overviews of the contents of the museum exhibits, and then I try to create the scripts of what the exhibits will be. Whether they're multimedia film, they're diorama-based, they're virtual reality, whatever it is the medium that we're working, that's what my service is. That's what I do. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do more projects like this, present to people, because it's really important, because this temple is going to be it, and everyone should be able to explain what's going on in it. No, like, I don't get that stuff either, right? Everyone should have a grasp. So, yes?
Hare Krishna. Yeah, Hare Krishna. So I have one question. So, you talked about the cosmic arrangement, right? And so usually, like if we read the Bhagavad Gita, it is a set of instructions by Krishna, and it's easier for us to like understand.
You're going to have to slow it down.
Okay.
If you do it with the beat of Hindi,
Okay.
I won't be able to follow.
Yeah, am I audible now? Yeah, okay. So what I'm asking is like in the Bhagavad Gita, so Krishna gives us a set of instructions, and when you read that, it is easier for you to understand and like implement something in our lives. So when we come to Bhagavatam, so there is, like you said, a canto describing the cosmos, universe. So those things, how are they actually relevant to us to
So what
take
should
certain
we
action?
take from this?
Yes, yes.
Very good question. Excellent question. That, when I first arrived in my service, I did hundreds of hours of interviewer with the designer of the chandelier and the director of cosmology for the temple, because that's the way you learn. My training, I got a degree in English literature from a University of Windsor in Canada, and my specialty was kind of deconstruction of literature. But what I've done over the years, I'm actually a communications person. I do development, which means I do fundraising writing. So when I do a fundraising campaign for a nonprofit organization, the first thing I do is sit with the actors, the people who are sacrificing the most, and I try to understand, I get a gem. What is the essence of the project? And then that's what it pervades all promotional material. And many times the people, you can't see it, the forest for the trees, because they're in it. So I did this with Untitled Prabhu, the director of cosmology, and I said, ultimately, what have you gotten from your study of the cosmos and designing this machine? And you know what he said to me? He goes, how much everything is simply a manifestation of Krishna's love for the living entity. How he's gone to so much trouble to allow us to fulfill our naughty desires and to ultimately learn that we will never be happy unless we return home. And he's bending over backwards to give us facility to do what we want. But then gently, 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 he's trying to encourage us that, my child, you won't be happy here. You're looking for me. Everyone will disappoint you. You're looking for a soulmate. I'm your soulmate. So that is the ultimate manifestation of the cosmos, is seeing it's an elaborate construction by Krishna to take you down, to take you up, to take you sideways, ultimately so you'll understand that unless you find a life of making Krishna happy, you will never be happy yourself. It's impossible. That's like we're all together in this world. And that if we want to make, we'll make heaven a place on earth, Belinda Carlisle said. It's a place that love comes first. Do you remember that song from I'm dating myself. So that is what we want, is a revolution of mutual love, respect, and service amongst all human beings that we had once a very long time ago. And by understanding that we're all in this machine together and we have a common seed-giving Father that we heard this morning, Prabhupada's Bhagavatam class. You heard that verse. There's a line in this morning's class. It was Jagrahe Purusham Rupam. That the universe is the form of the Lord, is the body of the Lord. So it's meant to make you love Krishna and understand that he really loves you. That's what cosmology is about. So please bless us, we can be successful. Make a plan, watch the TOVP. If you can get for the opening, if you can come and see the planetarium when it opens, you'll be very, very happy. Everybody needs to go to Mayapur at one point in their life. It is said that somebody simply who walks through Mayapur no longer returns to the world of birth and death. So it's our Prabhupada said that it's my place of worship. Vrindavan is my home. Mayapur is where we worship Lord Chaitanya. And before we go back to Krishna, we all want to go back to Krishna, play with Krishna, right? But we have some work to do before we do that. And that is serve Lord Chaitanya and bring as many people back with us before we go. That's the deal. That's what ISKCON is about.
Evil.